Greetings travellers, this is Nemo060 with you once again. I'm coming into audio only because I am here to do a dramatic reading. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these, but this is an article I think you guys will find particularly amusing. I've recently become a fan of the Game of Thrones series, mainly the TV show, because I personally find the book difficult to read. Not saying it's bad, I just find the particular structure a bit difficult to follow narrative-wise, and so I find TV show a lot easier to get into. I am quite a big fan of it, considering that I like strong characters, and I like the various elements of different power play and the brutality of the various kingdoms that come into the show. However, obviously, this is not going unnoticed by the Christian right. It's popular, and therefore, it must be evil, according to the far Christian right, because, if it's popular, then, well, it must be satanic, because nothing popular can actually be Christian, everything has to be Christian to these guys, otherwise it is absolutely evil. But I don't know about any of you. I found this particular article to be unintentionally hilarious. This is the same website that said that Portal 2 encouraged homosexuality and sodomization of children. And really, I don't think... How can you top that? How can you really top that by showing something as innocent and as perhaps maybe cheeky a little bit in its humour, but otherwise suitable for your average kid over 12 years, between 10 and 12 years old. How can you really top this? And so I present to you 12 reasons to boycott Game of Thrones in 2012. Dun dun dun. Because this is a dramatic reading, I am going to read this in my dramatic voice. I certainly hope that this is satire. Please, someone give me evidence to show that this is going to be satire, because it's just too funny to be taken seriously. This is kind of the definition of Poe's law, I'm afraid. It's just at the point where it's so stupid that it beggars belief that even a far-right Christian would write this. But hey, maybe some of my American viewers would actually be able to prove me wrong. Perhaps they've experienced so much that, they can honestly vouch that this is how far-right Southern Christians think. But without further ado, let's get on with it. Sorcery, sexuality, and socialism make for a nasty threesome. Oh joy, we're up to a great start already. First of all, this is a fantasy series. It's a low fantasy series. Sorcery is relatively downplayed, if barely involved. It has some kind of monsters in it, has some magic in, but it's very, very, small in it. It is not nearly on the same scale as Lord of the Rings, and so sorcery would perhaps be very inept to describe it. Socialism, this is not really promoting any form of government. This is just setting as it would be in the Middle Ages. Although, considering this is a far-right Christian, I'm not surprised that he hasn't done a bit of research. And sexuality, oh no, we must protect the children and, not have an adult show display adult content with sexuality. We must repress people, we must keep them ignorant about our own human bodily functions and completely ignore all the context. And yeah, I'm not fooling you guys. But let's continue. We've got quite a lot to go through, I'm afraid. Yet one television program is not afraid to promote this agenda to America's young adults. I highly doubt this is aimed at young adults, honestly. Maybe something like 18 to 25, something like that. Well, you could say young adults, but not as in teenagers. I I think the teenagers might enjoy this, but I think some of this might be lost on them, you know, when it's to do with a lot of different power relations and very slow, you know, pace and things. But hey, if there are any teenagers watching in the audience and you enjoy Game of Thrones, then feel free to correct me. Let's see, where was I? Game of Thrones, the newest hit on the HBO station, has truly broken the barriers of decency with this offensive science fiction action series, and it's about time parents took notice. I love how these idiots on the far right just absolutely cannot tell the difference between fantasy and science fiction. As if, you know, there might have been different standards and, you know, maybe, you know, fiction and not actually promoting anything. Why should parents take a look at it? Unless, you know, you honestly want to have control over your 18 or 20-year-old child, then I think there's something wrong with you. Aimed specifically at the male teen demographic, with a specific emphasis on awkward and outsiders amongst them, this series becomes obscene fairy tale of beasts and wizards, promiscuous wenches, and bare-chested knights. Okay, there is some kind of outcast with them, and there are children involved in this, but that's kind of the point. This is supposed to be a dark, gritty, and more realistic fantasy world. This is not pulling any punches. This is not over-idealising like Christians like this want to do it. This is showing that life is a bitch. Everything is not pretty. It's not going to turn out right. The good guy will not always win in the end, and that's part of the appeal. Anyway, with its plot lines of paganistic deviancy, occult violence, and anti-Christian propaganda, it has been incredibly successful at luring immature boys of all ages into raunchy dominion of adult cable entertainment. At no point in the series does it actually promote Christianity one way or another. Christianity does not really exist in this. This is a medieval world, probably pre-Christian, and really, you know, religion plays some part of it as part of a culture, but otherwise it's not exactly focused. But, you know, of course, it's not the focus, so obviously it's evil. In essence, Game of Thrones is a poorly produced copy of Mel Gibson's Braveheart with a dash of smut straight out of Hustler magazine, added to the spice of frustratingly complicated drama. Frustratingly complicated drama. This is why I cannot take this seriously. We must be joking, because he's saying it's too complicated and therefore it's bad. It's just American idiot right there. This is the idiocracy we're seeing right here. It can't be complicated, you know, it's too smart, therefore it's bad. If you take the time to actually listen and stop judging every little moment and being such an uptight moron, then maybe you'd understand. It can be preachy and pretentious one moment and deadly X-rated the next. I have never seen it to be preachy. It's very much a part of its own world, and the different characters in different kingdoms have their various degrees of moral ambiguity. Some have, like Ned Stark, are more honourable, while more like Tyrion Lannister, he's more, you know, kind of on the fence. There are different degrees of good and bad, just like in real life. And of course, we also have the far-right Christian obsession with sex in here. You will witness the effeminate men having sex in bathtubs while speak about dragons, dead bodies splayed out in satanic pentagrams in the snow, and some of the most artificial acting broadcasted on the small screen. Yeah, because subtlety is totally lost on this guy. Honestly, you just saw, like, you know, weird pentagrams made of dead bodies in the first episode. That brought up again, mind you. And then you just judge it as satanic. The sex, I must say that the sex in this series fits well. It all plays on the characters and shows their different levels of powers, their different intentions, and it speaks to the different characters. It is part of this gritty and unforgiving world. Sex is as much a part of politics as sword and armour is. And this is something that this guy completely ignores. How can such illicit programming be allowed on American television? Gee, I wonder. Does it pose a risk for our children? No. Can Christians voice their outrage and have the show censored or cancelled? Hell no! Because I'm sure that many of my viewers may also be Christian, and they may also enjoy Game of Thrones, because it is fiction. Maybe they have more than a couple of brain cells and can understand the different plot lines and understand how life is not all smiles and sunshine. Below are 12 solid arguments, I should put solid in quotation marks, for boycotting Game of Thrones this coming year. Oh joy. And now we get to the actual list. This should be amusing, shouldn't it? 1. Sexual abnormality, including incest of lesbianism, appears in graphic detail. Oh dear. Honestly, the Christian right, they say that we're obsessed with sex, and yet half these bloody articles are constantly talking about sex. I suspect there's a little more going on behind the scenes with this guy, if you know what I mean. From casual rape to group orgies, each episode of Game of Thrones has something astonishing for the viewers. Yes, astonishing that sex is used in different ways and may not always be pleasant. How about that, eh? For many children, this will be the first time they'll be introduced to wanton fornication. Will they choose to experiment with this in real life? If your children are watching this, then there is something wrong with you letting them watch it. I would not let my children watch this. I'm sure one of my friends will not let her 2-year-old daughter watch this, and I'm pretty sure that, the person I met at the concert would not let their family watch this with them. This is an adult show. This is an adult fantasy. Get over it. Witchcraft is presented as empowering while Christian values are utterly insulted. Oh no! What about the Christian values? What a shock! Please. Your Christian values are far too uptight. This is getting stupider by the minute, but then, what exactly would you expect? Deadly potions and menacing spirits dominate the storyline. There is no mentions of Jesus despite his love, backbone and wisdom of the Middle Ages. Yeah, right, like what, the Spanish Inquisition? The Dark Ages? The suppression of people like Galileo? Yeah, right. Yeah, Christianity may have been there at the time, and it's a very brutal and oppressive affair. I'm particularly glad it doesn't mention any sort of, religion. And the sorcery is also shown to be a part of this gritty world. Because it does not always help the characters and can often hinder them, then it will, very well backfire. It will add more drama. It is not pleasant. That is the point. 3. There is far too much violence, and this prevents the overall plot from ever being compelling. Oh dear. Where do I even begin with these? I'm starting to become completely lost for words on this. Do we really need to see all the bloody close-ups of beheadings and elaborate jousts? Yes, because that is what it would be like in real life. It just doesn't contribute to anything educational to the viewing experience. Oh, so everything has to be educational for you? Well, how's this for a bit of education? Life sucks. Deal with it. Emily Clark is such an untalented actress that her only role in the show is to be eye candy for paedophiles. Obviously, this guy cannot tell young from... This guy thinks that they must be in their 30s and 40s, obviously, to not count as paedophiles. This pretty young girl unfortunately lacks the intellect or sophistication to appear on prime-time television. Yeah, I suppose you want an ultra-redneck like you to appear on there instead. The producers seem to know that this and require her to disrobe in every scene. It's not in every scene, it's select scenes, and it develops her character. She is very much abused and the tool of her brother at the start, although something as simple as having sex from the front with her new husband, the Horse Lord Drogon, she gains respect for him. She becomes his equal. She stands up for herself and gains confidence through being respected and shows she is worth something. And she stands up and takes control away from her oppressive brother and empowers herself. But oh no, I'm sure you would want, all women to be completely submissive to all of their male counterparts now, wouldn't you? Her gentle, undeveloped teenage body does not invoke womanhood, but an innocence of a lost child, alone on the side of a highway, ripe for the picking. Okay, she's young, but she's not a teenager. She's about my age, and I'm 23. She's going to be about 23, 24 years old. She's supposed to be young. She's supposed to feel helpless at the start. She is supposed to feel very exploited. It is not supposed to be pleasant. It was never intended to be pleasant to begin with. But it develops and she becomes a stronger person. By depicting traditional heterosexual family unit as dysfunctional and socialistic revolutionary army as ideal alternative, the show reveals its underlying communist bias. Talk about reading far too much into this. Not all families are going to be functional. There is some homosexuality in this, but it's very much just another part of the world. It's not promoted, it's not a huge part of it, it is just a part of what makes life life. Shouldn't it be any surprise that the author George R.R. Martin, a power broker in liberal Hollywood, named the dominating spirit of these soldiers the Red God? Yeah, because we can't have fantasy that, invents other gods other than the Christian one now, can we? Actor Peter Dingle, who plays the dwarf in the show, has become the poster child for sodomy among America's youths. Oh dear. Yeah, far from it for dwarves to be anything else than comic relief, Scottish talking, axe forging little people. Yeah, they can't be taken seriously at all. Children identify with Dinklage because of his small size and comical accent, but his obsession with anal penetration crosses the boundary into pure propaganda. Yeah, like what I'm reading right now, this is more propaganda than that will ever be. And small does not equal childlike, and that's kind of the point. He's breaking the notion that all small people have to be like children. How many children will watch Little Man and want to try his grunty thrusts at home? If children are watching it, you are doing it wrong. At times, the series appears to be little more than an excuse to display illicit homosexual scenarios. Oh dear. Homosexuality is downplayed, but I never got what's so bad about homosexuality. You seem to have this real demonization and obsession with homosexuality that's such a bad thing, and yet it's not. It's just the same as any heterosexual relations. Deal with it. Flamboyant costumes, effeminate long-haired men, boys shaving each other's armpits, and to show the voluptuous, swarmy acting style of gay porn star Kit Harington, who plays the psychopath Jon Snow, you'll feel like you've been transported into San Francisco bathhouse full of the apes from Star Trek. Oh dear. See what I mean about having an obsession with sex? The Irish actors willingly glamorized severe alcoholism. Nothing in this show is glamorized at all, you idiot. The the economy, or however you pronounce that word, of Ireland has always been a weakness of its people when it comes to alcohol indulgence. Why must Game of Thrones attempt to find humour in this national disgrace? I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. The show is incredibly difficult for adults to understand. Only if your IQ is below 20 and you're not paying attention. And of course, this guy is suggesting that because we don't understand it, then it must be boycotted. Yeah, because everything absolutely has to be about Michael Bay level big fast cars and explosions and be incredibly dumb just to be understood. It can't be about differences in moral ambiguity and various plot threads running together. Most parents will find the thick European actors of the actors confusing. Stop speaking American! It's the only language I understand! If it's not American, I don't understand it! I apologise for that horrifically bad American accent. The story, ramped up for its original book, is frustrating for its leaps in logic and implausible romantic scenes. How are the romantic scenes implausible at all? The producer of Game of Thrones seems to understand that they have crafted the series that intentionally turns away older viewers. It's aimed at older viewers, people with brain cells, people who can think, unlike yourself. Should we be suspicious that they worked hard to have some private alone time with America's children? See, you assume that because you cannot understand it, then it is therefore for children. Explain to me this. If you, as an adult, cannot understand it, then how do you expect children to understand it? Riddle me that, Sherlock. There are no positive role models. Ned Stark. Or what about the woman you were talking about before? It may sound a bit old-fashioned, but whatever happened to strong male figures we had in shows like Little House on the Prairie and Touched by an Angel? Instead, we have Littlefingers and androgynous Jeffrey Burton prancing about as heroes for today's confused young men who appear to be insanely obsessed with this outrageous series. Yeah, because you completely forget about the strong women in this series. Because, we absolutely have to have black and white moral characters. Oh yeah, because you believe in objective morality, don't you? Well, got news for you. Life is not objective. Good and evil is not set in stone. And if it was, then you'd claim, your side was being made to be evil anyway. Just because there aren't pure good characters, and not all of the pure good and the best characters will survive or have the happy ending, does not mean that there are no strong role models. And do they even have to be role models? Why should these people be the kind of people we look up to? Why can't they just be more ordinary people? Why isn't it more exciting that way? And finally, the moody, dark cinematography will make teens depressed. Oh dear. Honestly, it's this kind of moron who creates teens like this who cannot tell the difference between fantasy and reality. Oh dear, I'm going to have to read more of this. This is comedy gold. Many youth subculture groups, including goths and skinhead, prefer to inhabit the world of the night. In the darkness, they find the convenient courage to master their addiction to drugs and sexual violence. Wait, what? Okay, teenagers are often going to feel withdrawn. They're developing more a sense of self and growing individuality, as well as having their body changes. There's a lot that's changing in their minds as well as their bodies, and this is why they feel alienated. This is just promoting complete ignorance. And just because it might be slightly darker, or it's not all smiles and sunshine, does not mean it's promoting as such. In the darkness, they find convenient a cover to master their addiction of drugs and sexual violence. Does Game of Thrones actively promote marijuana usage and rape? No. No, it does not, you idiot. Should parents really sit idly by as we wait to answer these important questions? Yes, because parents should know that it is not aimed at children. And so we come to the end of this long-ass dramatic reading. I hope you've been able to sit it through as much as I can. Honestly, I just hope this is satire, because claiming it's too stupid, claiming, that it's bad because it has sex, it just proves how idiotic this person is. I highly doubt that anyone is really that stupid and honestly just cannot just honestly goes down the route of I couldn't understand it, therefore it should not exist. Perhaps there are people that are smarter than you and you should pay attention. And I suspect that you are becoming a laughingstock of both Christians and atheists or anyone in between everywhere. Because looking through the comments, I highly doubt very many people are taking you seriously. Thank you for sitting with this dramatic reading. This is Nightmare 60, and I shall see you next time.